Professor Wolff, welcome.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Glad to have you with us. First of all, Capitalism Hits the Fan, the Global Economic Meltdown. You did not write this as a consequence of this deal that was just worked out over the weekend. You wrote this book as looking at a much larger economic situation. Give us the largest frame.
Well, I wrote the book, and we were relatively early in the so-called economic crisis that started in the autumn of 2007. But to be real honest, I have to tell you that I did not expect things to spin as far down as they have, to look as grim as they now do, and to produce not only economic downturn, but a political dysfunction that exceeds what I thought. I mean, I would have to come up with a stronger phrase than hits the fan, and I thought that was pretty strong to capture what's going on. I think we are at a very, very bad point. Here we are in an economic system that's in deep trouble, a recovery that left most people out and is even sputtering for the few it benefited now. And we're going to say to the largest single buyer in this country, which is the government, that you should cut back what you buy, cut back what you spend. And all that's going to do is increase the suffering, increase the problems, and provoke in this country a grim recognition that we're heading down, and that as we do, the gap between the rich and the poor only gets wider. And this is a set of circumstances that should trouble anyone who's paying attention.
So what led us to this? Again, it seems to me like this all began with a couple of things. Jude Wanniski's memo in the mid-'70s to the Republicans, his two Santa Claus theory, saying that the Democrats had always been Santa Claus. They brought Social Security and unemployment benefits and Medicare and everything else, and everybody loved them. And the Republicans were always Grinches. So they had to flip that upside down. Whenever a Republican president was in office, spend like a drunken sailor, run up the debt as hard and as fast as you can, and then as soon as the Democrat comes in office, scream about the debt and the deficit and use that as a way to force the Democrats to cut the programs, their own programs, so that they will no longer be identified as Santa Claus and the Republicans will be identified as Santa Claus. They've been running that playbook, and some will admit it. I mean, there's numerous columns about this in the conservative publications since the election of Ronald Reagan. And it seems like that is what brought us to this, in my mind. I'm curious your take on how we got here.
Well, I think that's partly correct. It's clear that the Republicans used this debt ceiling routine as a chance to grandstand. I mean, people should be aware. I counted up, just so I would be able to say things like this on radio and television programs. I counted up the number of times a sitting president has asked for the debt ceiling to be raised or lowered, mostly raised, since 1940. Total number of times, 90. More than 1.5 times per year on average. It's an absolutely routine thing. Presidents on both parties have asked for it. Representatives of whatever party was out of office grumbled and said, gee, it shows the president's not managing things correctly, and then promptly voted for it until this time, when suddenly it became an opportunity to run that game plan that you described, with the Republicans taking advantage of people's upset about economic crisis to say, look, we're going to punish the government. That's this strange American idea that when you're fired by a private employer or you're thrown out of your home by a private bank that goes to court, you shouldn't get angry at the employer and you shouldn't get angry at the bank. Instead, you should get angry at the government. They're the root of all evil, and so the Republicans play that game, and they promise that not only will they punish and make the government smaller, but they will protect you from taxes. And in a time when nobody trusts politicians anyway, maybe they can win some people who at least think that the chances of a tax will be a little less than it otherwise would be. And the Democrats come back. I would adjust what you said slightly. They come back and say, look, we're the lesser evil. Vote for us because we won't savage Social Security or student loans or all the other things you need as badly as those Republicans will. This is a sad commentary on where things are. And perhaps the worst part of it for me as a professional economist is that we all know what the fundamental problems are in this economy. We have horrible unemployment. We have falling wages. We have benefits being reduced, and that is dragging our economy down.
These things all drive down demand.
That's right, and they drag the economy down. The president has been saying for 3 years he's going to stimulate by providing incentives and inducements for the private sector to deal with the unemployment problem. Well, it didn't work under Bush. It has not worked under Obama. Something has to be done. And whatever you may argue, and I have my own preferences for what we ought to do, cutting government spending while doing absolutely nothing else for the unemployment problem will actually make it worse. But maybe that's the Republican strategy, that no matter how bad it gets, they can win more votes by positioning themselves as the ones who will punish the nasty government for doing it and who will prevent you from having to pay higher taxes, and hope that no one notices that the decreasing condition of the American working class and the mass of the middle class is a direct result of what the Republicans are pushing for.
Yeah, I've been saying this since the day that Obama was elected, or was sworn in, the day after, when Mitch McConnell said his number one job was to make sure that Obama was a one-term president, that the only way the Republicans could do that would be to obstruct anything that will make the economy better, and in fact make the economy worse. Try to get unemployment up to 10 or 12%. Try to, if possible, maybe even get inflation up, but I think it's going to be deflationary, and then run on the campaign of, this guy's Herbert Hoover, you need to kick him out, and that this is a generational play. They're trying to do what Franklin Roosevelt did, capture an entire generation as you know, the saviors of the economy. The problem is that their economic policies are insane. Jude Wanniski, in addition to coming up with the two Santa Claus theory, was the guy who invented the phrase supply-side economics. Tell us how well that's worked out.
Yes, it's an unbelievable thing that you know, reasonable, mature men and women still believe that sort of thing. But I guess if you repeat it long enough, the basic idea is the economy is not driven by how many people have jobs and incomes enough to buy the goods and services that we work to produce. No, the argument runs, it goes the other way. We have to do everything possible to provide good profits for businesses, and then if we do that by low taxes, by all kinds of subsidies, by all kinds of deregulation so they can do whatever it occurs to them will be profitable, why then, by magic, all of this will happen. There's no historical support for this sort of thing. The conditions that make an economy do well are complicated and many. There's no magic bullet. We do know that if you throw millions of people out of work, and if you depress the wages and benefits of vast numbers of people, you're not going to boost the overall economic situation in most conditions.
Right.
That's what we have now, and we're suffering the consequences.